Hello, esteemed viewers. Many thanks for joining us again inside the real estate on your favorite station, Housing TV Africa. Today we'll be discussing the impacts of housing data in the housing sector. Now, before our guests will be joining us in the studio, let's give you a hint of what the topic entails. Housing data provides a critical foundation for analyzing the health and dynamics of the real estate market. It includes metrics such as home prices, rental rates, housing supply, vacancy rates, mortgage interest rates, and demographic shift. By tracking these indicators, stakeholders from policymakers to investors and home buyers can make informed decisions. Now, in the era of digital platforms and big data, the availability of housing information have grown, increasing transparency, but also raising questions about data accuracy, accessibility, and equity. Ultimately, robust housing data is essential for shaping fair, responsive, and sustainable housing policies. We'll be discussing the impact of housing data in the housing sector using the launch of a book titled The State of Lagos Housing Market with our guest. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, our guest will be joining us in the studio to tell us about this book, which was recently launched in Lagos State concerning housing data in the housing sector. Hello, esteemed viewers. Many thanks for joining us once again on Inside the Real Estate, where we discuss issues related to the housing sector. I am your lovely host, Confidence Ruben. Today we'll be discussing the vital topic that has to do with the impacts of data in the housing sector. And with me in the studio is our amiable guest. He goes by the name Roland Igbinoba. He is the founder at Pop Crowder Limited and Executive Vice Chair of Roland Igbinoba Real Foundation of Housing and Urban Development. Hello, Mr. Roland. Sorry, I forgot to tie to Dr. Roland. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Confidence. I'm happy to be here.
All right, you're welcome. So how are you?
Great. Doing great.
All right, you're welcome to Inside the Real Estate on Housing TV Africa. All right, let's kickstart with the book you launched recently, titled The State of Lagos Housing Market. The State of Lagos Housing Market, which is the third edition, that is volume 3.
Correct.
Now, tell us about it. What does it entail? And how can this book resolve the housing deficit in Lagos State?
Okay, great. Thank you very much again.
You're welcome.
So the State of Lagos Housing Market report, it's a report we started 15 years ago. This is the third edition in the series.
Okay.
And the first edition was in 2009. The second edition was 2016. And now we just launched the third edition a few days ago. And really, data is life. Data is like the bloodline, right? Especially when you deal in the real estate sector. Everywhere, data is key.
Okay.
But the interesting thing with the data in real estate in Nigeria is there's been a lack or a dearth of data for a long time. And so what we do with the State of Lagos Housing Market Report is to track events that have happened over time in the real estate sector. And this is what we did with this third edition of the report.
Okay.
And to answer your question in terms of the impact of the report in the deficit in the market is, if we came into the studio and there was no light in the studio, we'll be groping. We won't know where to go. We won't know where the chairs are, where the cameras are, where the lights are. But once you turn on the light, then everywhere it's, you see bright, and shining. And that's what data does, okay? So with this report, we've covered, it's a 256-page report, covering different sectors of the real estate value chain. And so immediately we brought in light to the activities in the real estate markets in Lagos.
All right, so this book, how can it be purchased? What are the procedures to get the book?
Oh, if you go to our website, the foundation's website, you can get the book on the website. You can order the book and get the book on the website.
Okay. Yes. All right. Now, in the area of housing and data in Nigeria, and most recently, the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, under the leadership of architect Ahmed Dangiwa, set up a committee, and they were charged to establish a national housing data center. We have heard that the committee will soon be commissioned. Do you think that this book can in any way support the federal government?
Oh, interestingly, very sure, because again, like what the minister is doing is the way to go. Setting up that data center. But at the data center, you then have to have reports that feed into that data center, and this is where this report comes in very handy. So, for example, for this report, we interviewed 11,000 respondents in Lagos. Of course, as you know, Lagos is of 24 million people. Interviewed 11,000 respondents. So, there is a whole lot of data that is not even covered in this 256-page report. So, the 256 pages are like a summary, of the analysis that we did with that report. So, there is a whole lot of feeding into the national data center. So, for example, in terms of deficit, we have been able to establish that Lagos State needs 3.4 million units of housing. That's deficit in Lagos. And it requires around 225,000 units on an annual basis. And so, but in 2016, right, this figure was around 2.9 million units. But today, that's 3.4 million units. That's a 15% increase in the data for Lagos State. And then what this does basically is that at the end of the day, this data can be dimensioned. How many of these 3.4 million units fit into the high income category? How many fit into the middle income category? And how many fit into the low income category? So that's the kind of thing that the data we have done in the data, and this can really feed into what the government is doing at the federal level.
So how does this availability of housing data influence public awareness and perceptions, when it comes to housing markets and also attracting investors into the real estate industry?
Oh, great. I mean, in this report, what we have done basically is, like I said earlier on, dimension that market. So when we say 3.4 million housing units, where are these units look? Where should these units be? Who are the people who are able to afford this kind of unit? And so, and this is where the data really becomes interesting. So, for example, we found out that in Lagos, right, when you talk about home ownership, you have with this data, with the data that we just got, 77% of people in Lagos are renters. So you have a 23% who are home owners. But out of that 23%, you will find out that it is very interesting, I smile because out of that 23%, you will find out that you have a mass of the people at the bottom of the pyramid, which is totaling around 80% of the people. So what we also did was to look at consumer preferences and customer preferences. How much are they willing to invest in the houses? And so it tells you what people can afford and in which location that they can afford those houses. And this is good information for investors, because now investors know where to focus on when they are entering the Lagos market. And so with all that we got, I gave an example earlier on to say that, look, in Lagos, renters are 77%. You have 23% of home ownership. But interestingly, 40%, okay, of those home ownership are by investors. Okay, so that tells you that you find that there is a mass of people who are investing even in the home ownership in Lagos. So by the time you dimension the data for these 3.4 million units, a lot of things will come out that will then inform the decisions that investors make. For the homeowner or the prospective homeowner, you know, we also detailed in the report where infrastructure is going. So for example, we talked about transit oriented development, okay, talking about the blue line and the red line, rail lines, and what kind of development are happening in that location. So it would help the buyer to know that, oh, okay, there's infrastructure, there's this mass of infrastructure coming this way. So this is the best time to probably go and take a position and buy land cheap now so that I can have my own house. So that's the kind of information that the report is.
All right, let's talk about affordable housing, okay, which you agree with me is one of the basic challenges in the housing sector. So can you throw more light on how housing data can address this challenge in the housing sector?
Okay. So the good thing is, you know, when you talk about affordability, there's been several conversations around affordability and affordable housing. But what data does is that it helps to inform policies. So what happens is that you find that governments are able to understand the dimension of the challenge that they are being faced with. All right. So when you know where the housings are lacking, you know the number of the housing that are lacking, then it helps you whether you want to do social housing, whether you want to focus on rental housing, whether you want to focus on even co-sharing, for people to co-share and own housing. So really, data helps to inform the policies, you know, and in terms of regulation also, what we did with the report was to look at how regulation is happening in Lagos State. And you know, with that, government can then know how do we further regulate the market, not to stifle it, but in such a way that it attracts the capital that it needs for development.
Thank you so much. Now let's talk about the upcoming event, the Africa International Housing Show, which is, you know, scheduled to take place 27th July to the 1st of August. In its 19th edition, it's going to feature a data session. Now, what ideas can you share to inform the discussions that will take place?
First of all, congratulations to the AIHS team, for sustaining this this event over the last 19 years, right? 18 to 19 years. Yeah. My first encounter with the AIHS was at the second edition, where I was a speaker. And so I followed you guys for quite a while.
It's been a while.
You know, so in terms of the data section, which is also something that is very, very welcoming, to have a focused data session at the AIHS. It just means that we are upscaling the game of data, and that's a fantastic thing. And I'm going to be looking forward to the conversations around data, you know, and we're also going to be sharing what we found in terms of the data. Like I said, this is a 256-page report, but it's nowhere near the kind of data that we have that we couldn't even publish. So really, you know, we're hoping that, and you know, Lagos is the commercial hub for the country, and so once we are able to dimension what's happening in Lagos, we can then mirror to a very large extent, you know, what's happening in other parts of the country. So it's a very welcome development, and I know that with the details, with the details and the analysis that we have done, this will fit into that data session, and we'll be happy to share it during the AIHS.
Okay, thank you so much. Before I let you go, I still wanted to, you know, pinpoint the relevance, the importance of housing data, because I need you to lay more emphasis on housing data. So, I mean, real estate developers out there really need to know the importance of housing data in the housing sector. Just pinpoint the relevance.
Okay, so I'll tell you, when you talk about the relevance for the housing data in the real estate market, right? It cuts across the entire stakeholder spectrum. Okay? So a financing institution, right, who wants to finance affordable housing, for example, how will they know what people can afford if they don't know the locations where people can afford the type of houses that they want? And this is where data comes in. All right, the developer who wants to go to a particular location, or the investor who wants to invest in a particular place, how would he know whether he can see this transaction from start to finish? It's data. Right? How do we discuss affordability without data? You can't. And this is where data come in. You are understand. Data helps you to understand the income profile of people, the demographics of these people, where these people want to buy houses, the typologies of houses that they want. Okay, whether it is 1 bed, it is 2 bed, it is 3 bed, whether it is terraces, whether they are bungalows, whether they are semi-detached homes. Data just brings light to the entire space. And this is why data is really, really critical. And then for government, it helps government in terms of policy directions. They know where to focus on. They know the mass of problem that they are dealing with, right? And not just by guesswork, but now they have data that inform whatever policy direction that the market should be going.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Roland Ugbinobar. It's been an insightful session with you. And trust me, I've learned one or two about housing data in the housing sector. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right, viewers, this is where we wrap up on today's episode, Inside the Real Estate. I'm sure you've learned the relevance or the importance of housing data in the housing sector. Till I come your way again, I am Confidence Ruben. Keep watching Housing TV.